Today is Saturday, February 18th, 2012. My name is Ulla Merz and I'm here to interview Gayle Myers-Harbison, who has been a member of the Boulder County Farmers Market since the early 1990s. This interview is being recorded for the Maria Rogers Oral History program as part of the collection recording the history of the Boulder County Farmers Market. I have with me today Megan Bowes, who is filming the interview. Welcome, Gayle, and I'm so glad you could join us today. I want to begin today by asking you to give us a short biographical sketch, when and where you were born and how you came to Boulder.
Okay, thank you, Ulla. I was born in Evanston, Illinois in January of 1949. I lived there with my family in Chicago until I was 13, and at that point we moved to Boulder, Colorado. And so I have lived in Boulder or Boulder County ever since. So I went to junior high, high school, and I have 2 degrees from the University of Colorado.
Wow, so what brought your parents then to Boulder?
My father always wanted to be independent of his very large family and was always interested in moving someplace interesting. But then he always decided that after a couple of years he wanted to go back to Chicago. He's a person that just couldn't, he really needed to be back there with the family, even though he had this kind of back and forth thing going. And so actually we had moved to Colorado when I was like 3 years old in Colorado Springs and moved back very quickly. But this time, actually, he moved back to Chicago and my mother and I stayed.
Oh, really? So you two liked it here and decided to stay.
Exactly.
So what did you study at CU?
My undergraduate degree is in Russian language and literature.
Wow.
My master's degree is in linguistics.
Wow, interesting choices. So do you speak Russian?
At one point, many years ago, back, I got my degree in Russian in 1970, I spoke all right. It's gotten really rusty. And
yeah.
if I ever get the chance to go to Russia, I certainly am going to do some studying and brush up on it so I can actually communicate with people when I go.
So actually it makes me ask some more questions then, as you studied Russian and linguistics. What did you do with that?
Quite frankly, I really didn't do anything with it. By the time I had finished my master's, I was married and we had 2 kids. And so basically I stayed home part of the time and just did part-time jobs that weren't very consequential because of the children. And eventually I needed to get a full-time job. Ended up at the grocery store where I had worked my way through college, and did that for quite a while. Eventually I decided that this was really a job that I really didn't want to have anymore, so I figured that I needed to get some kind of additional training to be able to make more money and have a better life. And so I found that what was then the Boulder Valley Vocational Technical Center had a 2-semester program in computer programming. And so I didn't want to go back to school and get another college degree. That seemed to be really useful. So I did the 2 semesters. It was 4 nights a week for 4 hours a night. It was COBOL programming and just business programming in general. And so after the 2 semesters and working full-time at the grocery store, I had the certificate. Wow. And was able to get a job as a computer programmer trainee. And so that was in 1983.
So actually then I had wanted to ask you about that anyway. So as far as I know, you still work in the information industry or computer industry.
I'm still in information technology. I went from being a computer programmer and to a manager of technical programmers, to a software architect, and now I'm a project manager and I work at CenturyLink, which used to be Quest.
So then, I know you also have another business, and that's actually what we're going to talk about more. Tell us what the name of your business is and how you decided to call it.
Okay, my business is called Gayle Grows It, and it was named by one of my IT coworkers. We used to carpool from Boulder to Golden to our job, and she's a very clever person, and I asked her if she had any ideas for names, and she actually thought of a couple, and that was the better one.
Oh, so what do you grow then?
Okay, I grow cut flowers of various types. This is all outside, no greenhouse flowers. And I also sell perennials, mostly, almost entirely in 1-gallon containers. I focus on xeriscape perennials, and also recently I've been doing a lot more with edible plants that you can use for edible landscaping.
Oh, well, I don't know anything about edible landscaping, so what are some of the plants that are in that category?
Some of the things that have been very popular are currants and gooseberries.
Oh.
And elderberries, plants like that. I've noticed that especially people of European extraction are really interested in the currants and the gooseberries.
Yes, and that's what I wanted to say, because where I'm from, we have red currants and black currants, and they make jam of it, and they make juices of it, actually. Rather than orange juice, we have actually black currant and red currant juices. So I grew up on that as a child. So do these plants work in Colorado?
They're very cold tolerant. Most of them are hardy to zone 3, which is to minus 40 below. And they do just fine. They're not, you wouldn't call them xeric plants, because after all they do produce fruit. And since all the fruit is pretty much 90% water, you know, they do need water. But you can certainly use a currant bush in place of almost any other bush that you would plant in your front yard, and it looks just fine.
Oh, so I know where to get now.
You do, and I have red, pink, and black currants. So they've been very popular, and every year I'm getting more, and people are really interested in them.
So how did you get started with plants?
Oh, just you know, we always had a garden at our house, and when we moved to one house, I put in quite an extensive perennial border, the whole length of the lot, and turned out that there were a lot of flowers there, and I kind of got the idea that, gee, maybe I could sell the flowers out of my garden at the farmers market.
Oh, right away you thought of the farmers market?
Well, you know, this was. We'd been there for a few years, and frankly, I didn't really attend the farmers market very much. You know, being in Boulder, you always know it's there. And this was in 1991 that I or 1990, I think I first got the idea. And when we just happened onto the farmers market one Saturday morning, and I got all excited about what I saw. And I talked. Mark Parsons was the market manager at that time, and he was so encouraging. It was amazing. And so the next year, I brought flowers, you know, just out of my garden, just cut flowers from the garden, the existing perennial garden. And I remember my next door neighbor was kind of dismayed, because she kind of liked looking at the flowers, and she was worried that I was just going to kind of clear cut them. But you know, that's not what you really do when you cut flowers, because you leave a lot of them that aren't exactly at the right stage to be cutting to bring in for a bouquet. So it really, she still had flowers to look at.
So you made then bouquets?
I made bouquets and just sold them at the market. At that point, of course, the market was much smaller, so this was 1991. And we were in the parking lot, which is now, I think, where the tea house is. So we were not on 13th Street, but there was sort of a little annex in the parking lot.
Oh, so before there was a food court.
There was no food court. There was just
vendors.
Space on 13th Street, and then sort of this extra overflow vendors, market people were in the parking lot. And I remember we had a Volkswagen Scirocco with a hatch, and we sold sort of out of the back of the car. That was the first year, and put up a table and opened the back of the car, and that's how we sold our flowers.
So did you come then for the whole season of the market?
I believe we did, for most of it, as long as we had flowers.
So you had then flowers basically for the whole season?
Yeah, there weren't tons, of course, but yes, we sold them for the whole season.
So you started out with cut flowers, so then I think over the years you added some more things.
Okay, so we lived in Boulder at that point. And after a couple of years, we decided that, especially the children, I have two boys that had grown up, that we wanted to move from the large house on the small lot in town to a smaller house with more acreage out in the county. And so we did that that was 1992 when we moved and bought our current house that has a couple of acres. And then I started growing, bringing in perennials that I either start from seed. At the beginning, mostly, I just started them from seed. Or I buy very small plants, little plugs, and grow them. Or at this point with the bushes, I buy bare root plants and grow them on. So then I had more space and was able to start bringing in perennials as well as the flowers.
Oh, so then tell me a little more about growing perennials. So I don't know what does it mean to start from seed?
So I've already got 14 flats started in the basement right now under fluorescent lights for perennials that actually will not really be sold at the market until next year. Okay, because they take a long time to grow.
Perennials till 2013, but you start them now.
I start them now. These are from seed. So a lot of them take a number of weeks to start, even to germinate. So, and then they grow slowly. So it's nothing that you can count on being able to sell for this 2012 market. Some things I get lucky and they grow fast enough, but generally they're not big enough to fill a 1-gallon container in 2012. So those are already started. I have about 24 more varieties to start that aren't already put in flats yet.
So how many different varieties?
I think there's about 30-some that I'll be starting from seed. And then I have my supplier for little plants is Bluebird Nursery, and they're in Clarkson, Nebraska. And they I get usually either plants in 6-packs or plants in 2-inch containers. And these are plants that really you can't start from seed, like sedums. I grow a lot of sedum. I like sedum a lot, and it's a good xeric plant. But starting sedum from seed is not such a great thing. So I get baby plants from them, and then I'll be getting those in mid-May. And then I'll plant those directly in the 1-gallon pots outside. And again, grow them outside all through this summer of 2012.
To sell in 2013.
And keep them, they stay outside all winter. I winter everything over outside, and then they'll be probably ready to go for sales in the spring of 2013. So
you have to really plan ahead and then make quite an investment years in advance.
Exactly. So I winter over about 3,500 to 4,000 plants every winter outside.
Oh, you do it outside, not I thought, wow, not in your basement.
No, they just, I cover them, they're in kind of planting areas. We have various areas that we keep the plants in. And I cover them with straw very late in the fall. And then in the early spring, then I uncover them, clean them up, and then they start growing.
So yeah, that was my question. So do you have anything else to do over the winter, or just covering with straw?
Just cover with straw.
Straw.
Yeah, winter we don't do a lot.
So, okay. So getting involved in the market with the cut flowers, and right, we talked about over the years now you have added perennials. And do you still sell cut flowers?
Oh yes.
Oh.
And the advantage, the perennial season, is very big in May and the first part of June, and then it kind of drops off. And we do sell plants through the middle of September, but not nearly at the volume as you sell them early in the planting season. So what's good about having the flowers as well is that when the perennial sales drop off a little bit, the flower sales, there's more flowers to sell. So that kind of balances my sales at the market.
So yeah, so tell me a little bit more about your customers, what they're looking for, or why would they, right? Why do they come to buy from you at the farmers market rather than going to the store?
Okay, for the flowers, I think it's because they're fairly they're pretty well priced. Usually they're about $5 a bouquet. It's not a very large bouquet, but I strongly believe that you should be able to buy a bouquet of flowers for $5 at the farmer's market and have something nice that you can put on your table. You don't have to spend $20 or $30. And so that's people come to me, I think, kind of they're a little bit less expensive than some other folks. For the perennials, a lot of people come to me and tell me that the perennials they buy from me live.
Yes, I can attest to that.
Because I winter them over, and we don't do anything special. I don't use any of there's growth hormones that most nursery folks use to make the plants more compact, and this, that, and the other thing. We just pretty much grow them and keep them irrigated. We use a drip system for our pots to keep them irrigated. They're grown fairly lean, not a lot of fertilizer. So a plant you get from me is kind of a survivor. And I do a lot of research in the winter to find new things that should do well around here, and just a lot of research like that. So I have probably about 135 different kinds of perennials, but I really try to really focus on things that I know will do well for people. So I'm not so avant-garde as some places that have a much bigger selection. So if you get something from me, pretty much it should work for you.
Yeah, and I can attest to that. I've bought from you, so that's I don't have really a green thumb. That's my husband, so I'm not very good at growing things. So that's what attracted me to your booth and how I got to know you. And then when I walk away with a plant, you went into your little box and got out a care card for the plant I bought. So tell me more about your care cards and how you came up with that idea.
Okay, with every plant that I sell, you get a care card. And it's a 3x5 card that you can put in a file box that has the basic information about the plant. And the way I got that idea was once upon a time I bought plants from a very well-respected mail order company called White Flower Farm. I think they're in Connecticut. And they have these cards. And I thought it was such a good idea because, if you just had the little stick that goes in the pot, just with the name, that stick has a tendency to disappear, especially if you have a Labrador Retriever that thinks it's really cool to bring them to you. So we used to have one of those dogs, and he used to grab them and bring them, and you'd like, okay, thanks, Lucky. What plant did you get that out of?
Yeah.
So I don't sell a plant without a care card. So when I'm getting ready to bring the plants to the market, Friday night before I do the plants, before I go to bed on Friday night, I make sure that I have care cards printed for each and every variety of plant that I'm bringing. It's sort of a just-in-time thing.
Yeah, actually then that's good. We can talk about how you get prepared. I think every farmer or vendor has a system, right, of how and when they have to get prepared and set up at the market. And so with plants, I notice people actually arrive earlier who have plants, because it seems it's right, a lot of work to get everything organized and then unload and set up. So when do you get started?
Yes, so on Friday afternoon, I try to get off of work at a fairly decent hour, because I do have the day job as well. I'll cut flowers, so that's the first thing that we do, is we go out and cut all the flowers we're going to bring, and get those bunched up. So we have the cutting and the bunching to do for the flowers, and then we select the plants that we're going to sell from the various beds that they are in, and we bring our plants to the farmers market in a 1984 Volkswagen Vanagon, and it turns out it's the perfect vehicle to take to the farmers market, because it's really holds a lot for its size. And so we drive the car from bed to bed, and I walk through the beds and see what looks good. So if they kind of talk to me, if a plant looks good and it's doing what, looks like a good plant that would look happy at the farmer's market, then I set them aside, and my husband loads them in the van, and then we go from bed to bed and go through and pull out and load all the plants that we're going to take to the market.
And then you tell it, oh, you will get adopted tomorrow.
So then on Saturday morning, we leave home about 6:45, so we get to the market about 7 o'clock. And then we have to unload all the plants, and these are in gallon containers, individually out of the van. And so it takes a while to unload all these plants. During the high season, I'll probably have 200 that I bring.
Oh, that was,
So the number of plants I bring, of course, varies by season. Starting early, it's not very many varieties, and so you kind of build up. With the highest sales in June, then you just bring.
Is that the peak?
It is. The peak is in June, the first half of June, and so you cram as many plants as you can in that car, and because you really want to be able to sell as many as you can. And the other interesting thing about selling plants, as opposed to selling a lot of other things like tomatoes or lettuce, is that you have to match the plant to the person. Okay, so you can't assume that you're going to, if you have tomatoes, you can assume that you're going to sell all the tomatoes, or whatever. But I have to bring plants for people that need shady and sunny and xeric and more water, all those different things. And so you want to have enough plants, so if you have 3 people that show up that have shade, that you can have plants for them.
That you don't run out of.
You don't want to run out of whatever, one kind of niche sort of plant. So therefore you will always bring plants home. You'll never sell out, because you need to bring sort of a spectrum of plants. So you really can't count on selling out of everything.
Yeah, so is it, as I am also a vendor at the market, I find I can never predict what people
and you can't
it's just totally random.
You can't predict either.
So is that the same with the plants? Yeah.
You can't predict.
Does it change over the? Has it changed? Right? Like, are there fads in plants?
There are.
There are as well.
Oh yes. I used to sell. Let me think of an example. There's a little ground cover that likes shade. It's called lamium, and it's. I used to sell all that I could bring in, and the sales on that have totally dropped off. Now they'll probably start up again.
It goes in cycles. So as you have to kind of plan a year in ahead, so how do you deal with that situation?
You just have to kind of do it. You can do some planning, but it's kind of difficult because you can't react to market pressures quickly at all because of the market rules.
Yeah. So do you go to any other markets outside of the Boulder market?
One year when I had been laid off in IT, I had extra time and we went to one other market in Denver. But I just go to the Boulder market.
And Saturday and Wednesday, or
just Saturdays? My experience has been that on Wednesdays people are not much interested in buying plants. And I've talked to other vendors who sell plants, and they have had the same experience. And in fact, I haven't had that good experience trying to sell flowers at the Wednesday market either. So that's just my personal experience on what the demand is there. So,
have you always been in the same location, and where are you in the market?
I am on the north side of the market. And up through this last year, I've been on the east side of the street. And
oh, have you moved?
I moved across the street for 2012. Really? And quite frankly, you ask about transporting the plants. On the east side of the market, you can't have your vehicle parked with you. But there are some spaces on the west side of the street that you can. I'm going to be taking Zhang's space because Mrs. Zhang had a stroke and they're not coming to the market anymore.
Oh.
And I'm going to try that space. I think we can keep the van with us. And also another factor about the spaces on the west side is they're deeper. There's actually more space in a 10-foot space than there are on the east side. So we're going to give that a try. So we will be between Far Out Gardens and Miller's.
Oh, so you were just then at the space meeting.
I went to the space meeting
in
yes.
February. So how did that go?
Well, it was surprisingly smooth. I think it didn't take long. I think I was the only person that actually moved. Some other people were able to get maybe a little more space because of someone that wasn't going to come any longer. So that was just a little bit of shuffling. I think I'm the only vendor that actually moved from one place to another.
Oh yeah, we moved last year, so and we decided to stay put. So as you said, you have a weekday or daytime job. So how do you juggle everything?
I'm busy a lot. All day Sundays, I'll be working outside for the most part.
Oh, right.
So I don't have I don't take any days off. And then after work, when the days are long enough, I'll try to get outside for an hour or so. So I just try to, and my husband helps out with, he does more logistics and transportation kinds of things. I do most of the work in the field. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I'll take a day or two off of work, during spring planting or something like that.
So as you said, you started in 1992. Did you ever take a year off?
I took, actually the summer of 1992, my IT job took me to work in Dusseldorf, Germany. So I didn't sell that summer, but I've sold every summer since then. Mm-hmm.
So what makes you come back every year? And well, you have definitely plenty of things to do.
Well, one of the reasons that I started selling at the farmers market is that my IT job is very detailed, technical, and demanding. And the farming that I do and gardening for the farmers market is not technical at all. It's much more forgiving as opposed to writing software or managing people. And it's just an entirely different thing. It takes you outside, and it gives me an outlet to do something besides IT work, because I realized that once my boys moved out and I no longer was doing all the myriad of activities that you have, soccer and lacrosse and bicycle racing and football and all those things that you do when you have kids, that I conceivably could work 100% of my time in my IT job. And I wanted something to pull me away from it, so I could say, Friday afternoon, I'm sorry, I can't work late tonight. I have to get ready for the farmers market.
Also, does your company or your coworkers know that you
I have to be.
Gayle Grows
I'm
It?
very. When I've changed jobs, and I've done that a lot in the last 4 or 5 years, I'm pretty careful not to say anything until they truly understand that I'm totally dedicated to my job. And then when I get to know them better and they know that I do 100% of my work, then I'll start to say, well, yeah, I also do this other thing, because I don't want them to think that I'm not dedicated to what they're paying me for.
Yeah, I can relate to you. I've been there myself, but I found also that the market actually creates that balance. Also, it's the people interaction. So, do you have some customers coming back, or
my customers are wonderful. Some people have been buying flowers from me since 1993 or so, and plants, and you just get to know folks from just seeing them at the market. And I think that's important to our customers too. They
do you want to stop? Yep. We're back to our conversation with Gayle, and we talked about customers. So the other is, do you provide any other services to customers outside of selling, right, flowers and plants? And
a lot of people ask me if I can do consulting, garden consulting. And with my regular full-time job, I just pretty much have to tell people that I don't have time. So I don't do anything else just except for selling the plants.
But then this is something you can do, can look forward to.
I can look forward to that.
In the future.
And I also wanted to mention about the customers is that, so many people are just longtime customers that have been coming to the market for years, and they really get to be friends. We have this sort of a small group of folks that we have dinner with a couple of times a year, a little group of customers, which is kind of interesting.
Oh, really? So, yeah, so you've gotten to know them.
You've really known them for so long. 2 examples. One woman brought me some wonderful jam that she made, just out of the blue. And another woman last summer, we had chatted for years about various things, and she brought me a book for my grandchildren that had been a favorite of her daughters. And
oh, how wonderful.
You just develop these relationships. And also, this is another opportunity for me to see people that I have known in Boulder for years and years, when our children have grown up together. And, it's a way to keep in touch with people that otherwise you wouldn't see. You would never see them again. Yeah.
I found exactly the same thing. If I want to meet people from all my walks of life, go to the Boulder Farmers Market.
Yeah,
right?
Everyone will be there.
Yeah, it's so great. So then, when I talked to you last, you mentioned that you were on the board at one point. So when was that, and how did you get elected and pulled into this adventure?
That was a long time ago, and it must have been maybe in the late 90s. I was elected to the board, and what happened was that I just found that I didn't have time, the kind of time that I needed to spend doing that, since I did have the regular job as well, and I resigned about mid-season, so I didn't spend very much time on the board.
So do you remember what some of the issues or decisions were while you were on the board?
What I do remember, it was kind of before, I think the year after I was on the board decided that they would implement team training before they started the next year. It was a little bit contentious time on the board that's what I mostly remember. It was a very contentious situation with the folks on the board.
So do you, what is it, right? What do you mean with team training? So
every year now, I believe, before, after the new board is elected and before everyone really starts up, they have I don't want to say it, sort of a retreat anyway. They have a person that comes in and helps people understand how to be able to be effective as a group, and sort of a team training thing. So everybody has some ground rules about how to be effective as a group of people like that.
And yeah, how, right, to work well as a member of the board.
Because one thing about the board of directors for the Boulder Farmers Market is there's so many people that come from totally different viewpoints, and we certainly haven't got a homogeneous board of everybody has, we have farmers that make 100% of their living by selling at markets, and we have other people who really have different viewpoints. And these people are not usually used to working in a situation where you've got like 12, 13 people in a group that have to make decisions together, because they're all running their own businesses. They're all pretty separate. So I think that the board has been much more effective since they've implemented really a sort of a training atmosphere at the very beginning of every year to get people kind of all working towards being able to work towards the same goals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you bring up a good point that everybody, through their own business, has their own perspective, because whether you sell meat or flowers or wine or cheese or vegetables, it's all very different, and you haven't walked in the other person's shoes,
exactly.
Right? And so that we all get along with each other.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
So you mentioned, right, you were in one location now for a long time, right?
Yes.
This is almost, wow, right? You're
well, I'm just moving across the street.
Yeah. So you had your neighbor, were your neighbors also the same for a long time?
For many years, Richard and Betty Stevens were our neighbors on the north, and Bunny Henderson, who sold interesting plants and various other things, was my neighbor on the south. Mm-hmm. And then our neighbors, other close by neighbors, have been Sheila from Far Out Gardens, and so we've been very close for a lot of years as well as the folks from Loredana's we've always been very close together as well. But Richard Stevens, I learned so much from Richard, and he's always been a person who's very supportive and has good ideas about things. And when you're a neighbor at the farmers market and you stand there every day from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., you really have time to chat and to really get a lot of perspective from your neighbors.
Yeah, it's right. Just as you make friends with customers, you make friends with your neighbors, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But now, actually, right, both are not there anymore.
No,
Bunny is not.
We have different folks now, and so some of those really close ties aren't there. And I would bet you that if those people were still there, I wouldn't have even moved to the other side of the street.
So as you've been with the market, well, next year will be 20 years.
I guess it will, won't it?
So what do you remember are some of and the market has incredibly grown, since you joined. Mm-hmm. So what are some of the highlights that of the development of the market, of the growth, that stick to your mind, of what has changed and has stuck around as something valuable that's appreciated?
Well, I think that the changes have been, of course, the development of much richer set of food vendors, not market members, but so many other things that are sold at the market now, and the variety of people that sell on the food court. Originally we just had a couple of people that were not farmers and sold things that weren't really farm related. So I think that's brought a lot of more interest to the market. How many, you can only sell, I think, so many tomatoes at the farmers market. So I think it's really a good thing for the market to offer way more things, meat and wine and all the other things. We have a lot now of people who sell baked goods. That's interesting too to a lot of people. So I think just the total variety of things that you can find at the farmers market that's really what's burgeoned. But what I think has stayed the same is some of the growers have been there since the very beginning. Miller Farms, they're still there, and they offer, their take on vegetables is different from many of the other vendors. Their vegetables are a little more inexpensive, not quite. Maybe they're not washed like more expensive vegetables, but a lot of people, that's what they want. They want something that's a little more inexpensive. They have to wash it, but that's okay. But that gives another dimension. So you can get all different kinds of things. And like I said, the Millers have been there since the market started, I believe. So lots of different things.
Yeah, that reminds me of another, right, as we talked with Richard Stevenson. It's right, they wash their vegetables the day before they come to the market. And that is what he feels is very important. So it's good to hear, right, that there's such a variety and how to approach it, right, how to skin the cat. There are so many ways.
Oh, yes. and speaking of Richard Stevens, they always had a line. There would maybe be sometimes a line of 20 people waiting to buy Richard's produce because it was the cleanest in the market and it was the most inexpensive in the market. And people knew that.
Oh, really?
And they waited in line.
Uh-huh.
So the two lines that you can always think of from the market are Morton's fruits and Richard Stevens vegetables.
So so you count as a farmer because
yes, I do.
So yeah, rather than a vendor that
yes.
Creates a processed item that they don't grow the ingredients.
That's
of.
right.
Right. So what do you think are some important factors that make the market work for farmers, particularly this Boulder Farmers Market? What do you think they have done that makes all these farmers come and keep coming?
Well, I think that the fact that we have some strict rules that we're growers, only you have to have grown it or gathered it, I think that's very important to people because they know that the person who's selling it actually produced that food. And it makes it important to farmers as well because they know that that's kind of the bond between the customers and the farmers. And I recently was talking to someone who had other sort of experience from another side of the market, and he's told me that he has heard of people who feel that they're only really successful selling at the Boulder market, that they've tried other markets and they weren't very successful. So I haven't talked to those people, but now I'm hearing that too. That because we have such a good draw, we're such a good a venue to come to, that not only draws the customers, but keeps, it's important to our farmers as well.
So then, so as there is talk about, right, maybe starting other markets, do you plan on attending any additional markets?
It depends on, I'm pretty limited because of my other job right now. But I would certainly, it would certainly be something I'd want to think about very, very closely. And if I could get the time and if it's a location that's a good one, I would definitely be interested.
So over the years, as we mentioned, right, you talked about the market. What has it meant to you in your life, the market? Oh,
I think it's a place where I'm always happy to get up and go to the market, even through most of the whole year. Maybe towards the end, everyone gets a little tired. But it's really something else for me to do in my life, and I always look forward to what's happening, who's there, all of the things just the whole package of the market. It's always a happy place to be.
Oh. So yeah, as you mentioned it, right, there is also rain and shine.
There is rain, yes. Well, you know, in Boulder, we're pretty lucky as far as rain and snow. You know, we always can count on some snow early in the season, and you just kind of have to be prepared for that. Luckily enough, I wasn't at the couple of Wednesday markets this summer where they had to close them down.
Yeah, it's right. Oh, and last year there was a Saturday market because of high winds. Well,
right, and that was at the end of the year, and I had stopped selling by then.
Oh, you were not at the market?
No.
Because that was one I could see, right? Have you ever had high winds when
We've
you were
definitely had high winds, but never high enough to...
So you didn't lose any plants?
Well, no, the plants are pretty much... That's another good thing about selling large plants, is they're pretty, you know, they can get rained on and snowed on and blown on and nothing's going to happen to them. The flowers, not so much. You've got that's a lot more delicate, so you know, that's a little more worrisome. But those plants, boy, they can just go through most anything.
That's good. So what do you do actually when you have flowers left over? What do you do with?
I mark them down to some extent, and actually I'll give them to my neighbors, or maybe take them to work or something like that.
Mm-hmm. So I have to be your neighbor. So what are, right, do you have any fondest memories of the market? Is something that comes to your mind that is special, a special event, right, in the market?
I don't really think of any one thing. It's to me, it's kind of a whole package of things. Because I guess I also don't. I try not to remember the really rotten things, you know, the really bad weather and things. And just as I don't really think too much about the really good things. I think of it more as a whole package of things. It's just sort of a good, nice thing to have happening.
So I think I'm getting close to the end of my questions. I want to ask Megan, is there anything you want to talk about or ask? So, well then, my final question is there anything else you want to mention about either neighbors or what you sell or customers or